First Republic Bank, the latest in line here for a handout. This one to the tune of some $30 billion that it's getting from other banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America. They're all stepping up to the plate to help out because we got a little bit of a crisis on our hands, shall we say. This is Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen went to Capitol Hill and assured the senators there that everything's going to be just fine. Banking system is going to be just fine. Well, theoretically, just fine, right? Except that there was this one little thing she said, and I need to play it for you because apparently they're not as willing to help out the little banks as we thought they were. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this program. We got a lot going on right now, and I think there's going to be a lot more fallout based on what we just heard, again, from these hearings. So we got to tackle all of it. But before we do, a quick note, portions of the program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There's probably never been a better time to consider. Well, price of gold is kind of high right now, but hey, it's worth looking at. If you are trying to invest in the long haul and protect the value of your dollars in the long haul, you probably want some gold in your portfolio. Well, you can go online to legacypminvestments.com. You can look at all the gold products that they have there. You can get a free guide to investing in gold or silver, or you can call them 1-866-589-0560. Again, it's legacypminvestments.com. I want to get to the disturbing things that Janet Yellen said because it really calls into question whether or not they are in fact helping the system or trying to save the system. But first, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, there may have been more corruption than we ever thought at some of these banks, including First Republic. Because we have learned, and I do not believe this was some kind of auto sale like what we saw over at SVB. We have learned that some of the top executives there sold their shares around March 6th. This would have been just days ahead of the crisis, and they pocketed millions of dollars in these transactions. Think about that. I mean, it kind of brings front and center what everybody's worried about, which is that this is a rigged system where certain insiders have certain information and they're acting on that information. I'll tell you, someone needs to investigate this because if they did, there will be, I certainly hope, HELL to pay. Not good. Not good. A lot of questions about that because, by the way, normally you would file with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, whenever you have one of these stock sales. And yet these guys over at First Republic, according to the Wall Street Journal, they didn't. They didn't file the forms with the SEC. They only did it with the FDIC. And I don't even understand how that happens, given that you're a publicly traded company. So this is weird. Really, really weird. And so now they're getting a bailout. I am sure there's a bunch of government pressure right now on some of the bigger banks to say, hey, guys, we need your help here. Step in, do the right thing. So that's all happening as we speak. But most disturbing to me in this very moment, and remember, it's all unfolding in real time, but we just heard from Janet Yellen there on Capitol Hill. And my takeaway from her exchange with Senator Lankford, my takeaway is that no, not all banks are safe. Despite what they told us on Monday, don't forget, Joe Biden got up there, I'll play you the clip in just a minute, and told us everything was fine. Your deposits were safe thanks to his administration and their moves. But that's not what she said. Listen.
Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVB just got or Signature Bank just got?
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So what is your plan?
We made that determination.
Right. So what is your plan to keep large depositors from moving their funds out of community banks into the big banks. We have seen the mergers of banks over the past decade. I'm concerned you're about to accelerate that by encouraging anyone who has a large deposit in a community bank to say, we're not going to make you whole, but if you go to one of our preferred banks, we will make you whole at that point.
Look, I mean, that's certainly not something that we're encouraging.
That is happening right now.
That is happening because depositors are concerned about the bank failures that have happened and whether or not other banks could also
No,
fail.
it's happening
And
because you're fully insured no matter what the amount is if you're in a big bank. You're not fully insured if you're in a community bank.
Well,
Bingo, bingo. And this is the entire problem, okay? Do we understand the risk here now? What the government is doing is effectively nationalizing our banking system. Roger Altman, who started Evercore, it's an investment bank, not a consumer bank, he said that much on CNN just the other day. I mean, this is what these guys are doing.
Right. What the authorities did over the weekend was absolutely profound. They guaranteed the deposits, all of them, at Silicon Valley Bank. And what that really means is that they have guaranteed the entire deposit base of the U.S. financial system, the entire deposit base. Why? Because you can't guarantee all the deposits at Silicon Valley Bank and then the next day say to depositors, say at First Republic, sorry, yours aren't guaranteed. Of course they are. And so this is a breathtaking step, which effectively nationalizes or federalizes the deposit base of the U.S. financial system.
And yet, Janet Yellen said this.
a bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences.
So if they really aren't guaranteeing the entire system, as Mr. Altman suggests and Ms. Yellen refutes, then they're really leaving regional banks in a lurch. And think about it. Regional banks, they matter, right? They should matter because it's nice to work with a smaller bank and have a relationship. What are we going to just have a handful of banks in this country that are effectively controlled by the federal government? This is a problem. And what they told us, what the president told us on Monday, after on Sunday night, Janet Yellen came out and announced that they were opening a window so that any bank in America could get funds if they needed them. They could go to the window and borrow funds so that they wouldn't go out of business. Well, the president said this on Monday, which sounds very, very different than what we just heard from Janet Yellen. Listen.
Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
Yeah, right. It's actually, that's a lie. Just like transitory inflation was a total lie. Because if we take what Janet Yellen said there on Capitol Hill, it's very clear. They are deciding which banks to save. Now, I get it. SVB was a big bank. It was the 15th largest bank in the country. And if it had gone under, then yes, on Monday morning, we would have all been lined up, ready to take all of our money out of any regional bank. I think most businesses and individuals are still, at this moment in time, quite ready to take their money out of a regional bank. And I just said yesterday, when I was doing a little commercial with Fluffy, you know, my dog, I said if I were going to open him a bank account today, it wouldn't be at a regional. How sad is that? It would be at a major bank because of all these concerns. Well, let's take a look here at what other lies were being told, because as I've explained at length and we talked about yesterday, one of the reasons why we have this problem right now is because the Federal Reserve printed so much money for so long. And simultaneously, the Biden administration handed out a third stimulus check, along with multiple rounds of stimulus programs like the $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan to nowhere, along with the Inflation Reduction Act of some $750 billion that just created more inflation. I mean, you name it. They were there ready with a check, including to so many green energy companies, which, by the way, SVB serviced. So there is some responsibility. Believe me, I would say the bulk of the responsibility is on the federal government for the reckless spending and the reckless money printing that they engaged in over the last couple of years. And yet, when questioned by Senator Tim Scott, listen to what Janet Yellen says about this one.
Will this administration acknowledge that their reckless tax and spending contributed to not only the challenges that we see in everyday households, but also to the challenges that we're facing today with SVB?
Look, inflation is too high, and it is the president's top priority to bring it down. And there are many contributors to why inflation is too high. Importantly, fallout from the pandemic and Russia's war on Ukraine that boosted food and energy prices. Many countries around the world suffer from the same problem.
So she didn't really answer that one. All she said was inflation's high and it's because of all these other problems. No. Let me be very clear. Those other factors, Ukraine, etc., that certainly influenced things, as did your refusal to okay a bunch of fossil fuel contracts up until just the other day when reality finally set in and Biden had to go forward with the Willow Project in Alaska. But the main reason we have the inflation we have is because the federal government continued leaving the money spigot open for way too long, way past the point of expiration. The Federal Reserve did this, and the federal government, courtesy of Joe Biden, just kept passing more and more stimulus plans. And look what you got. The situation today is a direct result of irresponsible financial planning on behalf of our government, whether they want to admit it or not. This is a much bigger problem than I would have thought. I mean, yes, they needed to do what they needed to do on Sunday night. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but it would have been pretty brutal on Monday. I will say this, however, it's clear they're not willing to do that for everyone else, and that is a problem. Joining me right now on the importance of ensuring opportunity for everyone, on the importance of making sure small businesses get a shot in this great country, making sure that the big guys don't take over the entire system. I'm so happy to welcome to the program Alfredo Ortiz from Job Creators Network. Go to joinjcn.com. Alfredo, good to have you here.
Trish, thank you very much for having me. Always a pleasure.
So there's lots to go through, but I want to start front and center on this whole banking crisis that people are worried is going to become a kind of contagion.
Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
Government do the right thing by coming in at the 11th hour for the bailout?
Yeah, so this is always a tricky one. As conservatives, we never really like government bailouts per se, but first and foremost, this is actually an industry bailout because they are tapping into their own funds that were created after the last banking meltdown. So about $100 billion fund that they're tapping into. So from that perspective, it is an industry fund that they're using. But we always worry about moral hazard, basically fancy words for basically saying rewarding people for making really stupid things. And by
the way, I should just jump in because you're an economist by background. I want to let the viewers know that Alfredo is an economist by background and has a lot of experience in the financial world as well as marketing. Moral hazard is an economic phrase, a fancy one.
It really just basically means, you start rewarding people for making dumb mistakes. The reality is from a marketing social behavior perspective, contagions are real, right? I mean, everybody's probably seen It's a Wonderful Life. If you remember the run on the bank, I mean, one person said, hey, I didn't get my $2 that I wanted. And everybody started spreading the rumor that the bank was going to run out of money. And so there you go. You have a good old fashioned run on the bank. And I think that's exactly what happened with SVB and could have happened with other banks as well. You're already starting to see deposits being pulled out of smaller regional banks and going into Bank of America.
Bigger ones, right? Because if you're a small business owner, you probably do have a decent amount of working capital on hand. You got to meet payroll. Do you really want to work with 10 different banks?
When you look at the industry as a whole, uninsured deposits on average only represent about 10% overall across deposits, across all these different banks. At Silicon Valley Bank, that was actually the exact opposite. 90% of the deposits were not insured, which means that these weren't small mom and pop companies that were literally banking at SVB. This was Pinterest, I think, Etsy, eBay. I mean, we're talking some pretty sizable tech companies that were operating within that.
They probably should have known better, right?
Yeah, they should have. This to me was really, first of all, bad bank management. I mean, they bought long paper in an environment of rising interest rates, which,
who does that?
I mean, look, even, your average Joe probably realizes that, you can't buy something that's a 10-year note making 2.5% when you have rising interest rates of 4.5%. But look, they had an open position of chief risk officer for 9 months, but they did have a head of DEI. They had a DEI officer, so it was really great that
diversity. You got to make sure that you fit the woke agenda. You got to hit all the ESG boxes.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, but I think the whole thing is just such a sham, benefiting the likes of Larry Fink and BlackRock. Because he's come up with this idea that it somehow is smart. I'm trying to see if we have some sound I can play.
Behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. Markets don't like uncertainty. Markets like actually totalitarian governments where you have a understanding of what's out there, and obviously the whole dimension is changing.
Who the heck prefers a totalitarian? I'm sorry, maybe you do, Larry. That's good for you.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's catching up with them. People are realizing that, profits matter. Accountability matters. You actually have to focus on making money, not, whether or not you have enough transgenders on your board.
Trish, and you have a lot of states that are just basically saying, we're just not going to operate our pension funds in that kind of environment.
I love it.
You're not focused on, shareholder output and shareholder value. We're just going to not bank with you.
So smart. Ron DeSantis in Florida. You've seen Kansas do this, Texas. It is wonderful to see because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people saying, you know what, this is not for me. Let me find an investment manager, an asset manager that actually cares about making sure I have money when I retire, as opposed to satisfying some liberal agenda. I'm sorry, money and the growth of one's wealth should not be rooted in these social issues. I mean, unless you want to just give up and become a communist. So.
Absolutely. And if I may, I want to point out too, this is also happening in many of our public companies. What happened at Disney? The CEO got fired and they brought back Iger. Primary mission for Disney is to entertain families, not to indoctrinate kids.
I love that it's catching up with the market. I don't like to see stock valuations go down, obviously, ever. Publicly held company, it's making money for your shareholders.
We actually pushed back when all that was happening with Disney as well. We started a No Mouse in My House campaign.
We're talking with Alfredo Ortiz. He runs Job Creators Network. You can be part of campaigns like this, including the No Mouse in My House, by going to joinjcn.com. Go there today. Look, you guys have been on the forefront of a whole lot of this stuff, including this idea that we're going to send helicopter money to kids that took out loans and maybe graduated, maybe didn't, to the tune of $10,000 or $20,000 is something that the White House and the president doesn't have the legal, if you ask me, authority to do. You guys took that one on as well. It's now at the Supreme Court. You're waiting for a decision. Tell me about that.
It's something that, as you know, there's $1.7 trillion in debt in this country, of student debt. If the Biden administration had its way, it's going to go and try to forgive all of that, which, again, is just horrific. And he would do that basically.
You want to have inflation?
Yeah, exactly. And he would, the worst part about it is, he thinks that he has the authority to do that, at the stroke of a pen and by complete fiat, as opposed to, through Congress. We decided to go ahead and put a stop to that. The program, as he had presented, was about a $450 billion program. Frankly, I think that some estimates I saw that went up to 750 billion, which I think is probably more like it when you look at the number of students out there and the amount of debt out there. So our arguments, I think, were received well by justices. I'm cautiously optimistic that in June they'll agree with us in terms of our position. We'll put a stop to this madness. I mean, look, the Biden administration has already been slapped on their hands 3 times with separate different judgments, the West Virginia case, the rent moratorium, and they just don't seem to understand that you can't have this kind of administrative overreach and that you need to actually work things through Congress. We're actually trying to see if there's a solution for this problem that's not on the shoulders of taxpayers, right? Because we have to hold the people who are really, truly accountable for this disaster, for this loan crisis. It's actually the colleges, universities, right, that have had digit increases and 5-star resort, amenities.
Bingo.
They're charging their kids ridiculous amounts.
Well, think about it. Alfredo, again, you're an economist by background. If you just said to some kid who, by the way, has no sense of what they're doing, right? Hey, you can take out a loan to go to this school. Or what about, you can take out a loan, we'll write you a check to buy any house you want.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, housing prices would go way up. I mean, the government has created free money. I've equated this with the left always hated that what they call the military industrial complex, right? During the Reagan years. Well, this is the big education complex, and we taxpayers are all paying for it. So you can go indoctrinate these children, and you do this at a huge price to society, and you leave them with a lot of debt, and it's all wrong.
Why are we bringing in the American college presidents that in some cases are making $5, $6, $7 million a year? You have college coaches, football coaches, that are making $10, $11 million a year. Where's the moral outrage?
Before I let you go, I just want to get at sort of the root of what you're doing here, because it's so important, Alfredo. And again, join jcn.com. That's where you need to go to learn more about this and to join the effort. Alfredo, you're out there trying to protect the core interests of small business owners, which to me are the heart of America. This is sort of the foundation, if you would, of our overall economy. This is the ticket to upward mobility for so many people that come to this country or in this country and want to do better. If we don't have these opportunities, then in my estimation, you become a lot like one of these banana republics down in South America with, a few on top and everybody else on the bottom.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The original mission really of Job Creators Network was to really protect and promote the health of our small businesses. But over the years, and especially under this administration, we've really had to, some people would probably call it mission creep, but it's not mission creep, it's mission evolution, because, it would be basically like saying, hey, we're going to remodel the kitchen while the house is burning down. We have to now expand our mission to really take care of the house that's burning down around us, to make sure that we have an environment that's healthy and that really does actually promote the success of our small businesses. Because look, they support our communities, they support our countries. I always tell people on weekends, go look at your baseball fields, your soccer fields. It's not Citibank, it's not Coca-Cola that's supporting it. It's Joe's car dealership and, Bob's Pizza Place and Jill's Dry Cleaning. I mean, our small businesses are the heartbeat of our communities and the heartbeat of our country. And without them, we just won't have a country.
I agree. Hear, hear. Alfredo Ortiz, great to have you. Next time when you come on, you're going to have to tell us about your background at Kraft. I just want the viewers to know. He used to run marketing at Kraft. And just give us a quick tease. What was the deal on the cheese?
My job at Kraft was to sell more cheese to more people, more offer, for more money, and do it in about 30 seconds. And so Kraft Cracker Cuts was my big product rollout. But it was a lot.
Look, if you can do that, you can do anything. I think the Supreme Court is going to be deciding with you. Alfredo, much appreciated. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks a lot, Trish.
Before I let you go, I can't end the day without giving a little plug for my favorite vitamin supplement for my little guy Fluffy, and that happens to be Rough Greens. I want you to go check it out. roughgreens.com/Trish. It's spelled RUFF. You get it, right? Anyway, Fluffy loves this stuff, and it has made such a difference in his life. I think I've told you this before, but he had a lot of allergies. And so I had to really revamp his entire diet. Part of that revamp was rough greens, making sure that he got all the nutrients, all the vitamins, all the probiotics, all the digestive enzymes, all the things that he needs to live a long, healthy, happy life. And he is absolutely thriving. He loves his food right now. I mean, I feed him really healthy food. And I think he liked it, but I put a little of this rough greens on top, and wow, that was the special sauce, so to speak. It was created by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, who has a couple of big dogs himself, and he cares so much about making sure dogs in America are healthy. So he has a special offer. You can get a free Jumpstart trial bag of rough greens today by just going to roughgreens.com/Trish. Sign up. It's free. It's your Jumpstart trial bag. All you have to do is pay for shipping, and it will be at your house in a couple of business days. So try it out. Let me know what you think. I love seeing pictures of dogs. I keep encouraging you guys to, on my YouTube channel or in Rumble, send me some pictures of your dog. Let me know how it's going. I just like to see that. So humor me. Let me take a look at those. I do like to see your comments, and I try to respond to all of them. So even if I don't respond, please know I'm there, and I am looking at them. All the more reason for you guys to subscribe to this channel. I always forget to tell you that, so I'll just tell you at the end of the show. Subscribe, hit the bell. It's really important. This is crazy. I mean, it really is. And I think it's just going to get possibly worse based on what I just heard there on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, the Fed obviously can't raise rates the way it wanted to. So guess what? More inflation to come. Yip, yip, hooray. Or hip, hip, hooray, whatever they say. Anyway, have a good evening, everyone. We will talk again tomorrow.